LJN for the Super Nintendo. Let's do it. How are you feeling? You got John Riggs here, part of a regular series where I showcase all of the games published by a specific company for specific systems. Today happens to be LJN for the Super Nintendo. We're going to show off all the games and I'm going to rank them based on my own opinions. And if you're new to the channel, this is part of a regular series where I've been doing this for a while. Make sure you're subscribed. I do at least 2 videos a week, always something new coming up. When I hit 100,000 subscribers, I'm going to do a giveaway where I put someone in their very own Nintendo homebrew. It could be you. Make sure you're subscribed for your first chance to win. Starting off with the incredible Crash Test Dummies. Now, this was the PSA. This was the thing. They had their own toy line. They had their own cartoon. They had the Nintendo game, and admittedly, I think I played more of the NES game than the Super Nintendo game. The Super Nintendo game plays differently, though, because in this one, the gimmick behind it, which I actually kind of like, is your damage meter is your body. Like, the more you take damage, the more you might lose your legs or lose your arms. You have to figure out the platforming elements without all of those things. You can still get through the level without them, but it's interesting to see when you're just going along and all of a sudden, hey, you don't have any legs anymore, so now you're bouncing around. You still got your arms until you lose those. This game is an interesting one. It's not terrible. It's not great, but it's not terrible. I'm going to put this game, this is the Crash Test Dummies for Super Nintendo, I'm putting it as a C, and this one may be the baseline for the rest of the games on this video. We'll see. NBA All-Star Challenge. Believe it or not, I actually kind of like this one a little bit because it's not just a basketball game. You choose your team, but when you choose your team, you play as the star of that team basically for that year. So I got the Seattle Supersonics. Oh. So we've got the Seattle Supersonics. I've never looked good in this hat, but still. You got the Seattle Supersonics, so you play as Sean Kemp, right? And you can do one-on-one, which is kind of cool. The control method is a little off. Like, you push one button to jump, and then you push the same button to shoot. I almost wish it was like, hold the jump button to jump, and then when you let go, you shoot or something like that. It's not that way. You have to like hit it twice, like one to jump and then one to shoot. So that's kind of weird, but you do get used to it after a little while. And there's other elements on here too, like you can play Horse. And Horse was a game I really liked to play, like on the playground back in the day. It's like you shoot, and then if they make the basket, then you have to shoot where they're shooting from. And if you miss, then you get the letter H and the letter O and the letter R. If you make the basket, then it's still blank, and then you carry on until somebody makes it, and then they have to shoot wherever you shot from. Kind of a cool idea. It's this whole game could have just been Horse, and I would have liked it just fine. It was my favorite part about this game. And there's dunking and stuff like that too, but you know what? For a basketball game, it's not so bad. And I'm putting this one, I'm actually going to put this one as a C. If the controls were a little bit better, I'd probably put it as a B, but it's actually, it's worth checking out. I'm keeping this hat on the rest of the episode. Roger Clemens MVP Baseball. They had one of these for the NES, and now we also have it for the Super Nintendo, thanks to our friends at LJN. And it plays like kind of a typical baseball game, only when the ball's in the field into play, that's when the angle gets kind of weird. It makes it unique, so props to this game for being a little bit more unique and not just the generic view that you always see in every baseball game. But unfortunately, it's that every view in every baseball game. That's how I know how to play these games. So when it goes to a different angle, I can never get to the ball in time, or I don't know. I'm putting this game also as a C. I promise you, not all the games in this list are going to be C's. All right. Spiderman XMen Arcade's Revenge. This game I couldn't wait to play. Love Spider-Man, loved the X-Men. I was a big X-Men fan. And this game you start as Spider-Man, collecting all the bombs to defuse or whatever the dumb beginning part is. And then you can play as the other characters. You can play as Storm, Wolverine, Cyclops. Gambit's in this one, and Gambit was super hot because this game was coming out straight out of the, after the cartoon was available, right? And with the cartoon, everyone loved Gambit. I love Gambit. And you can play as Gambit in this game. And the game is terrible. It controls horribly. The music, however, that's got me thinking now. Because the game is a D for me. It's a straight up D. It's not an F. It's not an F. You can still play it. It's, it has its issues, but it's still worth looking at for a second. Then you get frustrated and all that, and that's when you're like, okay, I'm turning it off. I don't even care. But the music is great. I love that funkadelic. It's like rock, but it has a little funk to it too. Just like that 70s style, Marvel, you know what I'm talking about? Man, if nothing else, YouTube the soundtrack and listen to the soundtrack of this. You don't have to play it, right? In fact, I may recommend not playing it, but still got to play it. It's Spider-Man and X-Men. It's what we had for the time. And LJN was great at that, especially with the WWF games that are coming up later in this video. It's what we had in the time. We're going to force ourselves to play it. And I'm putting this game as a D. Fortunately, if you loved Spider-Man, there's a couple of other great Spider-Man games, including Spider-Man, based on the animated series. Now, first we had X-Men, the animated series on Fox, and that was great. But Spider-Man on Fox, the animated series, that was really, really good too. So they made a video game based after it, and it's kind of weird. It plays like a side-scrolling 2D beat-em-up, kind of, but like you looked stocky, like you just looked kind of hunched forward. and you're definitely a little bit more of a stocky version of Spider-Man, and I mean, it's better than the other one, and it has the theme song. The Fox's, Radioactive Spider-Man or whatever, that song's awesome. That's no X-Men, but it's really, really good. It's right up there. Actually, it might be better than the X-Men theme. Who knows? It's okay. It's a C. And then what we were waiting for this whole time is Spider-Man Venom Maximum Carnage. I loved Spider-Man, and Venom was one of my favorite characters ever back in the day. And so happy that Venom is now included in this game with Maximum Carnage, another character I really enjoyed. I loved Spider-Man growing up. And you gotta remember too, this is the Spider-Man before the Marvel movies. This is the Spider-Man before even Tobey Maguire. So that didn't even happen yet. So this is like Spider-Man based on the comics and like the cartoons and stuff like that. And great to see this game here. It plays like a beat 'em up. It plays kind of like a Final Fight style game. It's okay. There's a lot of people who kind of really like this game, and I just can't get into it. It was during that time when like the Turtles arcade game and stuff like that, those were really popular. Even those were kind of dying out a little bit. But they were still kind of making some games like that, and this was one of those games. And, I mean, I don't know. There's something missing with this game. I don't know what it is. I'm also putting this game as a C. It's good, it's just, I was expecting a whole lot more. We had not one, but two T2 games. There were two Terminator 2 games. That's how popular this movie was. There's two games based on the same movie by LJN for the Super Nintendo, but they're both different, because one of them is based on the arcade game, and the arcade game plays, well, like Operation Wolf. It's a shooter, it's a gun game. Think of games that were also popular at the time. Like Revolution X was a popular one. What's another popular gun game that was like that? There was a while there where this style of game, it seemed like there was a new one every month, it seemed like. And Terminator 2 was great. You shoot the aliens. You shoot the robots, I guess you could call them for lack of better terms, and you pick up your upgrades and you pick up your new bullets and all that, and you can launch missiles, which is always cool. And it plays decently. Better with the gun. It plays okay with the D-pad. But still, I mean, it's very monotonous. It's the same stuff over and over and over again. I'm putting this game as a C. And then you have T2, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. This is your kind of action-based. And the action is not a lot of action. You have a punch, you have a knee, but you don't even have a kick. You can knee him in the groin. That's like the knee button. And you can jump, but barely. It's almost like you stumble over a crack in the sidewalk or something like that. This game is flat out terrible. I mean, I'm sorry to the people who developed the game and all that. I know you were working on a deadline because the movie was out, the movie was hot, people played this game. I rented it. It's the kind of game that people probably rented and then took back claiming it was broken when it wasn't really broken, it was just bad. Now, I didn't do that, but this game is pretty bad. I'm putting this game as an F. It's worth it. Another Arnold Schwarzenegger game in True Lies. This game's actually really good. Believe it or not, it's actually a really pretty decent game. Never mind that it has LJN's logo on it. Never mind about all that. This game, True Lies, if you've never played it, it actually plays pretty decently. It's like kind of an overhead shooter. I like the first part because you're just walking through the dinner crowd, and until you start shooting, that's when everyone else starts shooting at you. So if you want to do that way, that's fine, but if you don't, You can just walk right on through, man. That's cool. And then when you get to the certain part of the level, then yeah, then everyone's shooting at you and you have to fight your way back. But it plays like a pretty decent overhead kind of shooting game. Not really like Zombies Ate My Neighbors, but it has its own charm to it. You can duck and roll, you can shoot the other enemies, you pick up better guns along the way too, and it's actually not a bad game. And if you haven't played it yet, if you're just like, oh great, True Lies, oh, LJN, I don't know. This one, out of all the games on this list, this one's probably the one that's the most worth it. I'm putting it, now it's not excellent. I'm putting it as a B, but it's not excellent. But it's worth a B. I think it's actually pretty good. Warlock should have been better, man. Oh man, I was looking forward to Warlock. Warlock could have been a great game. It was a cool time because, I mean, witches were kind of in for a little while with like the witchy type movies of the late 90s. And I shouldn't say late 90s. This was like, you know, mid 90s. And then we had a Warlock thing. It's like, hey, great, cool. And in the game, it's like, man, could have been better, should have been better. I think this one actually plays a little bit better on the Sega Genesis. But the Super Nintendo version, I mean, movie tie-in, LJN, you can do the math. It's a D. We have Wolverine, Adamantium Rage. Why is it called Adamantium Rage? That's the best they could come up with. Adamantium Rage. Who's raging? It's Wolverine. I mean, Wolverine's always been great. We've always loved Wolverine. But this game, I mean, props to it for having some different attack methods. You can attack things differently. But it's also like you're in these giant levels, which are fine, great, but it's not always the best direction on where to go or what to do or what to hit. And, I mean, you play the game because you play as Wolverine. Could have been better. It's always like the robots. It's always the flying stuff. It's always the shoot this out of the way before it gets you. I don't know. It's not bad. It's not terrible. It's a C. There are 3 WWF games for the Super Nintendo. This is before it was WWE, taking it all the way back to WWF, Hulk Hogan and all that. The first one we had was Super Wrestlemania. It looked great, it looked cool, but nobody had different strength advantages, nobody had weight advantages, so anybody could suplex Earthquake right off the bat, you know? It's like, And more importantly, with the whole WWF thing going on and wrestling in general, nobody had finishers. They didn't. So unfortunately, you're playing a game where everyone, like, you know, you can play as Jake Roberts, there's no DDT. You can play as Earthquake, but there's no, like, Earthquake splash. Now, you can run off the ropes and then come back and do, like, an elbow drop, and that kind of looks like an Earthquake thing, but it's not the same. Now, sure, Randy Savage can do an elbow off the top rope. Everybody can do an elbow off the top rope. It's nothing special. I remember reading in Nintendo Power, I couldn't, if you gave me enough time, I could probably remember it word for word, but in the Nintendo Power issue with Super Wrestlemania, it says something about how Sid Justice devastates a devastating power bomb. You can execute a similar slam by pressing B. I'm like, everybody can body slam. That's nothing special. Power bombs are special. Body slams are, I mean, everybody does a power bomb now, but at the time it was something spectacular. I played a ton of it, but still this game's a D. Ugh. And then we had WWF Royal Rumble. This was great because it featured a Royal Rumble mode. Now, it wasn't a proper true Royal Rumble, but none of the video games have a true Royal Rumble just for, you know, sprite limitations and whatnot. It just has so many people in the ring at any given time. When they get weak enough, you can toss them out, and then once they're tossed out, then someone new comes in until you're the last one standing. It's the Royal Rumble. It's the same thing every time. You have a new updated roster on this one, so you got Crush, Razor Ramon, you got Mr. Perfect, Shawn Michaels, you got Ric Flair, and so much more. You got Yokozuna, love that. And you can do their finishers. At least it's something, right? So at least in this game, you can do their finishers. My friends and I played this all the time on weekends, after school. During the Royal Rumble, you probably did this too. You'd have your friend and you back to back on the ropes. So as soon as they came in for the Royal Rumble, you'd Irish whip them, and the other person would hip lock them over the rope, and you just do that until they're all gone. Until you go the last two left, you do that too. A lot of fun with this game. I'm still putting it as a C, but there's a lot of fun with this game. And then you have WWF Raw. And this game is like the other two, but plays a little bit better, a little bit cleaner. There are different kind of movesets. So not everybody does the same body slam, not everyone does the same suplex, not everyone does the same this or that. Depending on who you play as, it might be a different move, right? This game was interesting. You could do their special moves, their finishing moves, but then it also had like a special, spectacular, off-the-wall move that doesn't exist. Like, you couldn't do it in real life. Like, it just doesn't make, like, 1, 2, 3 Kid, for instance, would, like, go from one rope to the other rope, then back to the other rope. It's like, like just some crazy stuff like that. And I thought it was fun. It wasn't needed, but it was kind of fun. I have far more nostalgia for Royal Rumble, but this one, which also features a Royal Rumble mode, just plays better. And I'm actually going to put this one as a B. Not the best lineup ever, but something anyway, right? I have more of these videos coming out in the near future. Going to be checking out the games from Enix for Super Nintendo, as well as the THQ games. If you thought LJN was bad, wait till you check out these THQ games for Super Nintendo. Those videos are coming up and a whole lot more. Make sure you're subscribed. Check out these other videos if you haven't done so already from other ones I've done in the past, and we'll see you very, very soon.